Hi, welcome to section 4, and I've been showing you how awesome less is as a preprocessor when it comes to CSS. In this section of the video course, we'll be taking a look at Mixins, awesome feature to your less tool belt. We'll look at how Mixins can save you time, and how you can build Mixins with additional arguments, making them even more robust and practical. We'll then take a look at how to use Mixins to make life easier when dealing with browser prefixes. And lastly, we'll look at writing our own Mixins. So, on to our first video of section 4, the anatomy of a Mixin. In this video, we'll be looking at a few examples of Mixins and seeing how they're constructed. We'll then take a look at why we should use them. So let's start this by looking at a Mixin. This is something I use a lot. I like to include CSS transitions where appropriate to give a smoother finish to my interfaces. You may not notice it, but even a 0.1 second transition on a link or a button can make a big difference. This Mixin is top of my Mixins file. There is more to this, as we'll find out later on in this video section, but for now, this is a Mixin in its simplest form. Let's take a look at how it's built up. It starts off looking like a normal CSS class declaration. We begin the call with a full stop, period to our US friends, then a keyword, in this instance, transition, followed by opening curly braces. Then we have our code that we'll want to mix in, and finally, the closing curly brace. So there is a Mixin in its simplest of forms. It looks like a CSS class declaration, and effectively it is, but we call it in a different way. Now it's probably a good idea to talk briefly about organization. For the moment, we're just getting started with Mixins and less in general, so I'll be placing these at the top of my less file, fully commented out. But soon, you'll be writing your own Mixins and we'll want to separate them from our less code. A lot of developers will put their Mixins into a separate file and then import that Mixins file back into the styles. It's a form of abstraction and breaking your code into smaller, manageable chunks. When I begin a new project, I'll quite often have a separate file for colors, Mixins, variables, and my CSS reset. I'll put all of these into my main style.less file using less imports. We'll look at imports in more depth later in the video course. So now we've got our Mixin. All we need to do is pull it into our CSS. Remember the tag list tag we spoke about at the end of the last section? Here's the hover declaration linked with the tags at the bottom of our example section. All we need to do is type our Mixin name, including the dot, stroke period notation, followed by a semicolon. It might look odd, but this is how you call a Mixin. And now, when we process our less, this is what we get. You'll notice the dot transition Mixin name in our less has been replaced with the code we entered as our Mixin within the curly braces. Woohoo! So there we have it, a rundown and explanation of a Mixin, what it does and how it does it. Of course, Mixins can contain any number of lines of code, so you could use it to pull in some smaller details like CS transitions, or larger chunks like gradients.